Perfect. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Careers in Accounting, Finance, Banking and Economics Careers Insight event for you. I'm Keris Probert and I am the Careers Consultant for the School of Management, and I'm really delighted to be hosting this event for you today. We are recording, like I said, so I'm just going to start off really with a little bit of housekeeping. I will briefly introduce our panel and then we will get going. So we have today a really great range of speakers, and they're representing the sector from all different areas within here. But before we get started, just a few reminders. If you can keep your mics muted and your cameras off, unless you're a speaker that's talking, please feel free to interact with us in the chat function. We're expecting to see, lots of chat and lots of questions today, so please engage with us there. And if you've got any questions during this event, just keep posting them in the chat as we go, especially when it's fresh in your mind with the different speakers. So we will record this, and later on this afternoon, I will email you the presentations from today. We've got some really fab presentations from our speakers, and I'll email you the recording as well, and any links or anything that's shared during this session. And then at the end, so basically we've got a panel of speakers that are going to talk to you. They're going to give you a bit of an insight into their career journey, tell you a little bit about their education, some hints and tips to get going in the business. They might even have opportunities in their organisations. And then after they've kind of given their talk to you, we're going to have some time for a Q&A session. So please feel free to stay around for the Q&A session and ask as many questions as you like. That's a really, great part of this event is the kind of questions and the things that we think about as we go along. So before we get started with the speakers, the other thing just to really mention about today is to shout about this and to promote it on your social media. These are really great things to be getting involved with as students. This is showing employers that you're proactive, that you're really interested in this industry. You're giving up your time today to come along and hear about things that are happening and hear different insights. So please, follow us on social media. All the speakers today, we've hyperlinked links to their LinkedIn profiles. So feel free to tag us and to share and definitely connect with us in the career service. We quite often post really good opportunities and things for you. So to make some introductions today, just most of you probably have met quite a lot of our team, but this is the careers team for the School of Management, so the main faces that you might recognise. And so as I said already, my name's Keris and I'm the careers consultant for the School of Management. I work really closely with Naeem Amir, who many of you I know have worked with very closely. He is your school employability officer, and he's the person you're most likely to meet on a one-to-one basis. And today you can have employers that talk to you about opportunities. They might say about how they fell into their role or got into their role. They might talk about the application process. I know one of our speakers has, got some information on the application process for their company. And that's what Naeem can support you with. He can help you with that to really help you get your foot in the door. Within CSM, we've also got Rhiannon Parry. She is your school placements officer. So many of you will have met Rhiannon. I'm not sure if she's in attendance today, but it is her birthday today. So if you do know Rhiannon, just to embarrass her, send her a message. It is her birthday. The other person is Laura Stuttings. She is your Go Wales project advisor. Within these slides that we're going to send you out this afternoon, it has information about all of these teams, and there's plenty of information about the Go Wales project in there, which I'll let you have a little look at. And then you've got Hannah, who you can see on the screen. She is actually going to talk to us today, so I won't tell you too much more about Hannah, but Hannah represents our Centre for Entrepreneurship, who are part of today's panel. So the main event really today, our speakers, you get to see us all the time. We're always there speaking to you, but these are our exciting speakers that we've got here for you. So we're going to start off today with Hannah from the Centre for Entrepreneurship. If you aren't aware, the Cardiff Met has a dedicated department which really helps support and encourage entrepreneurship amongst students and graduates. So Hannah's going to talk to you a little bit more about that today. We've also got Zoe Stubbins, who is our representative from ICAEW. And they have professional responsibility for the ACA qualification in accountancy. So Zoe works really closely with us at Cardiff Met. We've also got Lauren Holbrook, and she is the founder of Holbrook Global Advisors, which is a chartered accountancy practice specialising in providing donor assurance and international development. Following on from Lauren, we've got Ryan Lewis, who is an investment banking analyst within Santander corporate and investment banking team. Following on from Ryan, we've got Ellen Wallace, who is a senior at PKF Francis Clark, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. She's also joined today by her colleague Alicia Wheeler, who looks after recruitment at their firm. So she's here to join in on the Q&A. Plenty of opportunities there to ask about how to, apply for opportunities maybe in their firm. We've also got Nazir Hussain, who is the principal economist for the Environment Agency. And he's got previous experience working as an economist within the Office for National Statistics. And last but not least, we've got Joshua Ayres, who is an audit senior at Albert Goodman Accountancy. And they specialise in accountancy, tax, financial planning and business advisory. So I'm sure you'll agree, a really fantastic panel with a really wide breadth of experience and diversity that will hopefully interest you along the way. So without further ado, will pass over to my colleague Hannah.
Hi everyone, it's nice to see you all logging on today. I believe some of you may have had a presentation from my colleague about the centre, so I won't talk for too long, but just for those who may not have been there, we are the dedicated space for entrepreneurship at Cardiff Met. We support students and graduates up to 2 years post-graduation with setting up and growing their businesses. We've got a large community of student and graduate entrepreneurs already, and we're always working with new students and with new business ideas, things like that. We're currently a team of 5. We will be expanding as 5 of us at the moment, which includes some business mentors as well. So we're one of the few centres across Welsh universities that have dedicated business mentors that you're able to book one-to-one sessions with. Now, I know entrepreneurship is coming up a lot, and some of you may not want to be entrepreneurs as such, but a lot of the skills sessions that we run, they're all transferable into careers as well. So you'll probably find that a lot of careers are and employers looking for the same type of skills as what entrepreneurs may have, and we're here to help you develop all of those skills. The way we do this mainly is by events and workshops. We have events running every week. We have workshops every week. We have one-offs. We have long series, all sorts of things. These are open to everybody. They're all free, and it doesn't matter if you've got a business idea or not. You're welcome to come along to any of them. We actually have a finance course starting next Friday, which is going to focus on finance for small businesses. So Steve will be going over, financial planning, financial models, cash flows, tax and VAT as a small business owner. So, if you're interested in either being a business owner or supporting small businesses with their finance, that may be a great course to come along to. I'm going to put lots of links in the chat after I finish talking. I'll give you a link to all of our events on MetHub and a link to the finance one in particular. We also run funding competitions. So Flash Fund is opening next week for Global Entrepreneurship Week, and this is an opportunity for you to apply for up to £200 funding to develop and kickstart your idea, if you like, if you're at the early stages of developing a business. You're more than welcome to engage with us. We love speaking to everyone and anyone. If you're thinking maybe you want to be an accountant or in your own accountancy business or things like that, we're here to support you. The best place to look is on our social media. So if you're on Twitter and Instagram, we're at Cardiff Met ENT. Or we're also on Facebook Centre for Entrepreneurship. I will pop lots of information in the chat. I may not be around until the end, so if you do have any initial questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and gosh, it disappears. My hair disappears if I move a certain place. If you do have any questions, pop them in the chat, and I'll have it, and I'll get back to everybody in the chat. But yeah, unless I think that's everything I've gone over. A bit of a whirlwind, but everything is on our social media and everything is on MetHub, which I'll put all the links to in the chat. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Hannah. That was really interesting about being an entrepreneur. Thanks. So I'm Zoe. I am from ICAW, and part of my role is to kind of show what opportunities are open to you after you finish your studies. So ICAW stands for the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, and we run the ACA qualification. And you'll probably see, well, hear from some of the employers later on in this session today, because one of the common myths is that you don't work for ICAW directly. We actually partner you up with an employer. So on some of them that you will hear today, we actually have over 6,000, and then you complete the ACA qualification through that employer. It's a prestigious qualification. You don't have to, just because ICAW stands for the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, doesn't mean that you just have to work in England and Wales. There's chartered accountants in over 150 different countries. It's a prestigious qualification. Actually, 96 of the world's 100 brands employ an ICAW chartered accountant. So I think right there, it just shows you the value of the ACA qualification. And there's a big support network of members that help support you through your qualification. And that's kind of one of the reasons why 90% of students qualify in 4 years or less. And we have an 80% pass rate as well. Not because it's easy, but because you just get a lot of support from everyone. Another key stat that we have is 77 of the FTSE 100 companies have an ICAW chartered accountant on their board. And that's because, yes, you're gaining skills to become an ICAW chartered accountant, but also we're giving you the skills in order to reach those higher kind of leadership board level roles. But yeah, that's really a brief introduction from me. I think a lot of you have heard about ICAW and the ACA before, but I will be sticking around right to the end for Q&A. So if you do have any questions about the qualification and the different routes open to you, yeah, please let me know. But I'll hand you over to Lauren now.
Okay, hello. Hi, I'm Lauren Holbrook, and as it says, I'm the founder of Holbrook Global Advisors, and been a specialist in the international aid and development sector for a number of years now. So in this very brief presentation, I'm going to talk you through kind of how I became an accountant, if people are debating that, and then what other skills and experience I've gained during my time, and then a little bit more about the actual sector itself, which is kind of a bit more interesting and slightly different to what you'd expect from finance. So in terms of my career to date, I would like to point out that even though I will be in this field for almost 20 years, well, 20 years next September, I never wanted to be an accountant. I was very clear when I was at university, probably at a similar stage to where you are, that being an accountant was not what I wanted to do. It kind of envisaged ideas of kind of stale white old men in grey offices. And whenever people talked about the accountancy qualification, they would always say, open these doors. But the doors all seem to be in accounting or finance, and I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do. But I did. And the reason I ended up going to become a trainee was because I wanted variety. I ideally wanted to travel. And I didn't know what sector I wanted to work in yet. You know, when you have so many options available to you, it's so hard to decide exactly where to decide where to start. And you don't want to make, or I didn't want to make a decision which kind of inhibited me for the rest of my life, it felt at that point. So I went to a small accountancy firm purely because I wanted to have that variety of experience and exposure to different clients. This is not to negate the Big Four, they're wonderful, but you know, I was very keen to not already have to decide what kind of sector of accountancy I wanted to work in. I wasn't even sure I wanted to be an accountant. And Borner Bullock, with a small firm in London, was wonderful because I got to work on things like it was a Anglo-French conglomerate, high net wealth individuals in Geneva, but also a winemakers in Darlington, and air conditioning units in Slough. So, I got to travel, maybe to Kettering, but I still got some travel, and I got the variety to know what sectors I was interested in. And what was very clear to me was working on things like pension audits or charity audits mattered to me. I could lose sleep over them. I wanted them, I wanted to make sure that I did my job properly there, because it really mattered the people that were invested in these companies. And so once I finished my chartered accountancy qualification, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to stay in practice, but what I did know is that I would like to, or I would love to have worked with international charities. And I think that's what I would have done if this opportunity at Moore Stephens hadn't arisen. And I ended up going for this role in this just quite a new department, which specialised in international aid and development assurance. Our biggest client at the time was the European Commission, and they would send money to projects and programmes around the world, and then we would go and travel to them and verify whether those funds had been sent properly. And the crucial thing was, it was there to check that taxpayers' money's been spent properly, but also to see how these projects are running. And I'll show you some slides about some of the places I've been to and kind of the countries it took us to. But it was an amazing opportunity to see the world and use an accountancy qualification in a way that I never thought was even possible. Now, I was there for a number of years. I made partner in 2015, and then had maternity leave because I had twin boys. And when I came back, the department, or the firm, was merging with BDO. And that's wonderful, and it's great, and it was a great opportunity for the firm. But when you've just had children and you've just had maternity leave, your life's kind of turned upside down anyway. And it was a chance for me to think, what do I actually want? And for me, it was clear that change was going to happen anyway with this merger. So why not make the change work for me and take the opportunity to decide on a career or the future that would offer the flexibility and the lifestyle that I wanted. And that was why I left to establish my own firm. Firstly, I worked directly with a client. They approached me to say, we don't want to work with BDO for whatever reason. Can you come and work and head up our internal audit team? It's a US multi-faith-based organisation that sends money around the world. And so I did that as a consultancy, kind of consultancy contract, set up my own limited company. And then this year it was like, there's lots of these clients which are not being serviced properly, not properly, but not necessarily given as much attention as they should with the bigger companies, because, they're lower value. And so I've established a chartered accountancy firm to try and meet that need. Now, there's no point when 20 years ago would I have thought I'd have my own chartered accountancy practice. But it is all the foundations of the chartered accountancy qualification that has allowed me to get to where I am. So what I want to do is to explain that, just because you're maybe looking at a career in finance and accountancy, it does not necessarily mean that that's the only skills you're going to gain. So on the next slide, I wanted to just highlight some of the other areas in which I have, gained experience and gained exposure during my career. So business development was one that I was never really, didn't really even know about. But it's how do you grow, how do you identify opportunities, write tenders, write pitches, help your department or help your own firm grow. And that's something that I have had instilled in me from the very first time I started work, is that, you have this opportunity as a kind of ambassador for your firm to grow that business. And so it's a skill that has set me in good stead now as somebody who has my own business. Mentoring and coaching, I think it's something that we talk about a lot nowadays, but something that kind of was like a buzzword that never really, people didn't really know what to do with before. But it's so apparent that, especially in any kind of initial audit qualification, you're running teams very early on. So you are looking after people, you're training people on the job, but they look up to you as somebody who's been through this qualification, who's been through the career, who they can rely on. And so you kind of automatically take on a mentoring or coaching role. And especially as a young woman in any field, there's not often that many women above you. So I never had a senior female boss at any point. And so, you kind of take on that responsibility to say, okay, how do I support other women coming up? And how do I make sure that they are given opportunities that maybe I wasn't given or wasn't, easily available to me? Other skills include client relationships. Usually you're the one that has those key client relationships. There may be a partner, there may be a manager, but you're having to build those skills, show that you're authentic and trusting and that they can rely on you, that you can deliver hard stories, hard news when it needs to be done. And in terms of contract management, for the European Commission, we had a big framework contract in which there was multiple jobs that were happening at any one time. So at one point I could be running 50 different jobs. So you need to be, multitasking. It's that kind of idea of variety again that you maybe don't necessarily expect when it comes to accountancy. And then you also have things like networking, building relationships with other network offices, building relationships with other people in your department, understanding how the rest of your firm works. Something that doesn't come very naturally to all of us, but it's a skill that you are always going to harness as part of this role. Public speaking and presenting used to make me physically sick, still does slightly, but you're having to deliver, you're having to have closing meetings with people. I was traveling to Botswana or Ethiopia. You're having to deliver the summary of the audit there and then, because you don't have a partner who's going to fly in and do a closing meeting for you. So you're constantly speaking, you're constantly having to improve those skills of how you deliver key messages. And then the leadership side, obviously, how you motivate teams, how you get people on board, how you grow a department together. And now in leadership and how I'm trying to do that as my own baby, my own business. And then finally the international side, which was something that I was really, really wanted, but didn't think it was even an opportunity or a possibility initially, to actually travel the world and use those skills that I have to be able to combine that with seeing the world and seeing what's out there. So in terms of the sector itself, international aid and development sector that we worked with clients that included people like DFID, Global Fund, USAID, European Commission, also directly with INGOs like Save the Children, Oxfam. So all of this was generally in kind of compliance manner, so that you were checking that the funds that they sent were spent properly. But we also did forensic reviews, capacity assessments. Were the partners that they were working with in these local countries, did they have the capacity to manage the funds that they were receiving? Going out and training people, assessing whether a certain project had the technical requirements. So working with engineers and other skill sets to say together, did they have the finances and programmatic skills to deliver this as they said they would? And so these jobs were everywhere, and these weren't in necessarily the most luxurious places a lot of the time. One of my first jobs was in Bosnia, and it was 10 years after the war had ended, but my parents were still, as I lived at home at the time, thinking, oh my God, there's a war going on. But I got to go to Sarajevo, which I never would have done. So over the last nearly 20 years, I've worked personally in about 45 countries, nearly 50 countries, and yet indirectly worked with over 120 where I've done jobs with them or had teams go to those places. I've got to go on safari in Botswana and Kenya and Tanzania, got to see some amazing sites all around the world. And so I think to end it, if I haven't overrun, sorry, when people always say that accounting opens doors, it does in accounting and finance, definitely. What I would say is it never closes doors. You have a foundation from which you can do anything, really. No one is ever going to look at that qualification and say, oh yeah, that's not going to be of any use here, because it will be useful no matter what you decide to do. And from my career, people have gone on to work in, internal audit departments of just major organisational businesses. They've gone and set up their own businesses or hub offices around the world. They've worked for some of the clients like UN agencies in Afghanistan, or they've just gone completely out and gone into just corporate world. It was a foundation and the skills that you have gained, which you can apply to anything. And so I'd say if you're hesitant, just don't worry so much now, because there are so many opportunities out there. But it's a great foundation from which to start. And I'll be happy to talk to any of you individually if you ever wanted to learn a little bit more. I talk too fast, so I hope that's okay. I'm going to pass over to Ryan now, who's going to be talking about investment banking analyst. Thank you.
Hi guys, thanks very much for that. That was super interesting, Lauren. I agree wholeheartedly that finance and accounting can open a lot of doors to people. My impression to date is that I can see hopefully a career ahead of me doing some extremely interesting work and also hopefully traveling globally. So a bit about me. So this presentation, I'm going to give a bit about me, a bit about Santander and the departments we have here, and then talk about my career. So if we go on to the next page. First off, you might know Santander solely as a retail bank in the UK. This isn't true. We're a retail bank globally. We have the retail bank where you might have your deposit accounts, your mortgages, or things like that. We also have a commercial bank, an investment bank, and even an asset management arm, which has something in the hundreds of billions asset under management, I believe. We're one of the biggest Eurozone banks by market cap, number 9 across the world, and number two Eurozone, and first in Latin America. This is obviously, we started in Spain, Iberia, and the Spanish-speaking arm ventured out to Latin America and is doing very well. So you can look at all of the facts on those pages in your own time. If I move on to the next page, can talk a bit about us more globally. Stress that it's 19% across the UK, so it's actually not even the majority. It's 23% of assets in Spain, and then something similar in South America as well. You can see Chile at 18% there. So if we move on to the next page, please. So where I work in the investment bank at Santander, I'm based in London for, it's actually Santander London branch now. The investment bank works with global corporates, and the London branch focuses on London companies or global companies where there are headquarters in London. What we offer is largely split into markets and banking. I work in the banking team, in banking and corporate finance, and you can see that it's a sector coverage team, consumer, retail, healthcare, all of the industries you can think of. We have very good presence. Largely, we have an extremely strong presence in infrastructure, which is my interest. I can talk about that in a bit more detail next. But we also cover financial institution groups. The global debt financing section is providing loans to either corporates or infrastructure projects. We have global transaction banking, which is all of your day-to-day lending, whether it's supply chain finance or receivables. And we will be providing these products to our clients, and we could be doing maybe tens of products a week with it. It's quite a small scale, but regular occurrence. And then private debt mobilization. This is what I would class as the clever, intelligent part of banking. Is where you take all of the loans and stuff we have on our balance sheet, and then put them together, and then try and de-risk that so as there's less risk on Santander's balance sheet. The other side is markets, so it's split, as you can see, into risk solution groups. This is where we provide our clients with opportunities to de-risk things where they're exposed to foreign exchange or interest rates, or things like that. There's the rates and sales trading, where we offer derivatives in the primary and secondary market. Have an emerging markets arm, which is by itself, and this is our presence in LATAM and Eastern Europe largely. And credit and sales trading, I don't know too much about, and cash equities, so I'll leave you to research that yourself. The support functions are always important. These are the back office teams that work basically to run everything that the front office people put through. So this is a risk team to make sure that what we're doing is not too risky. after our first line of defence, and then the operations team as well, making sure that all the systems work and everything's logged and sort of automated as such. So hopefully that's a good run through of the departments. If there's any questions on specific details, let me know. I can answer that at the end, or alternatively you can research if I don't know. So from there, me, as I said, I worked in the banking corporate finance team, specifically in corporate finance as a corporate finance analyst. We work with our clients and some new clients and trying to originate and execute new business ideas. Business ideas acquire something new, or they off path. They want to join venture with a different type.
You're just going a little bit quiet, Ryan. I don't know if it's your mic.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you a bit better. Thank you.
So we develop and execute tailored client-focused solutions effectively, and this can be from absolutely anything. So I've worked on EasyJet the other month, raised 1.2 billion equity via a rights issue. So I worked on the analysis of this. How much money do they need to continue to maintain sufficient liquidity? Can they raise this money in the debt market, or do they need to go and tap the equity market? The skills needed for this, I've written some of the key ones I think down there. You need to, there's a lot of maths involved. That all of this maths is underpinned by Excel. So if you can up your Excel skills, keep on top of your numeric analysis, and just generally be good at maths, that's a good start. The presentation skills, but all of this analysis and work we do is largely presented back to either internal product teams or to clients, and you have to have good presentation skills, and then also negotiation skills. Not myself at analyst level, but perhaps when I'm more senior, you'll need to be negotiating these sorts of things as well. Largely, and what's most important is your ability to learn, pick up new concepts, and apply this in practice. And also project and time management. That's key. Hopefully that gives a bit of an idea about Santander, the investment bank, and the role that I'm in, and a bit about me. I think I always picture an investment banking person getting their job because they've had 2 internships at JP Morgan, and then they fall into a graduate position, and then they're VP by 27. That's not quite me. So I wanted to just stress the fact that you can go about this in different ways. My background was civil engineering. I got a master's in that. I actually did it at Cardiff University, so apologise for that to all of you. But so I did a bachelor's with a placement year. I was unsure what I wanted to do, so went in to do a master's. Luckily got onto that, did my master's year, and still was unsure what I wanted to do. I knew it wasn't engineering, but I wanted to do the master's in engineering just because it was a mix of continuing studying, which I was enjoying, and it would help develop me. I was doing some research projects, and it's all beneficial. I ended up getting a summer rotation at Santander. I originally applied for the investment banking internship. The employment at the time, I believe, was done externally. So this has changed now, but I was told at the time that we thought technology and operations was more appropriate for someone with an engineering degree, because I didn't study finance or accounting or economics. If anyone on here is listening that doesn't study finance, accounting, or economics, that's changed. We are looking for anybody from any degree. We're degree agnostic, so if you've done history, if you've done finance, if you've done engineering, what we are looking for is someone who's able to pick up concepts quickly, learn, adapt, and work off the back of these. So I had an internship. Actually, let's get back a bit. I had no summer internships prior to this. I was working at a cable factory in Milton Keynes, testing cables, making sure that they were safe. So nothing to do with finance. I did my placement year with Kia, which was a construction company, and I was an undergraduate structural engineer up in the Lake District, working on bridges there, making sure they're safe, repairing them, and I didn't find it super interesting, but I won't go into it. I knew I wanted to do something else, and I thought that finance was a good opportunity, as Lauren said previously, to open as many doors as possible, be it professionally or geographically. My first internship with Santander, I got in Milton Keynes, really enjoyed it. Then on the graduate scheme, tried to get back into that position. The team didn't want that to happen. They wanted me to see different parts of the bank. So this is where I went into technology and operations. What is actually technology and operations? It's largely project management of different things in the back office. I mentioned before, there's a back office, there's the process management that needs to happen to make sure that the bank works well. This wasn't for me. I wanted to do something a bit less process orientated, and a bit more idea, a bit more creative in the work that I do. So I moved across. I was still interested in engineering and infrastructure, and Santander has a good energy infrastructure finance department. So I managed to set up 2 rotations, and this is my 2 self-made rotations at the bottom. Structured finance risk, which is one of the back office roles where we analyse the risk associated with the lending that we do, and then project finance, which was a front office team. And I love these rotations. I thought they were extremely interesting. I was learning about effectively how the world works. I worked on roads, hospitals, offshore wind farms, solar farms. I would understand the technical aspects of the assets. I also understand how the business works and how they're funded, which I thought was extremely interesting and would like to continue learning more. So after this, 2 self-made graduate schemes, managed to get a role in corporate finance. I'd say, although it's beneficial to have done 2 internships at JP Morgan to then go into corporate finance, it's not essential. I think the things that you need to manage well are the skills that I've mentioned before, but also your network of people. From my original graduate scheme, I'm working into making these 2 self-made graduate rotations. It took a lot of managing people. So if you can get your foot in the door at any place that you like the look of for a graduate scheme, talk to people, make sure you understand who works in what department, how they got there, can they help you in getting a secondment or even a works experience with them, and then just work your way in like that. If you know what you want to do, you can always make it work with a good network. I think that's it for me. I don't think I've got anything more to say, but I can hand over to Ellen Wallace now, and if you have any questions at the end, be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So as it says there, I'm Ellen Wallace and I'm a senior at PKF Francis Clark. So a bit about myself. So I completed an accounting and finance degree at the University of Winchester in 2018. And then later that year, I joined Francis Clark as an assistant in the corporate service department in the pool office. So for the last 3 and a bit years, I've completed an apprenticeship, the level 7 apprenticeship, and I've also just completed the ICAW qualification. So the training provider that Francis Clark use is Reed Business School. So they're a residential provider. So you go away for a week and you study, which is handy to get the break from work and study, and you leave work behind for a little bit. And then following completing my ICW, I'm now a senior in the corporate services department within the pool office. So the next slide, please. So a little bit about Francis Clark. So the firm are based across the southwest and the south of England, and we have 8 offices in a range of different places. And across all of these 8 offices, we have approximately 850 staff. So of those 850 staff, they're in various different departments, including corporate services, personal and corporate tax, corporate finance, VAT, and then we have the back office staff, so the support staff that help make sure that everything that we do on a daily basis gets properly documented and recorded. Francis Clark are part of the PKF network. So the PKF network is a global network of accountancy firms with over 220 members in 150 countries. So Francis Clark are based in England, but if we're working on a client with VAT issues, especially with Brexit recently, we will put them in contact with a firm within the PKF network overseas and then help make sure that our clients' needs are met. Next slide, please. So what do I do on a daily basis? So in the corporate services department, I both audit and I prepare accounts. So audit is reviewing accounts and making sure that they're materially correct and that they present a true and fair view. And then accounts are the preparation, so the smaller clients that don't need an audit. I also complete solicitors audits. So we go into solicitors and we check that clients' money is being correctly recorded and isn't being misappropriated. In the last 3 years, I've worked with clients in different industries, so construction, manufacturing, retail, and I've also worked with different sizes of businesses. So some of the audits that I've completed are statutory, so they meet the thresholds, and then others are voluntary, so they're smaller, and either the lender that the client's with requires them, or the directors wish to have an audit just to ensure that everything's going correctly and correctly recorded. Throughout the 3 years, I've worked in and with different teams. So within the corporate services department, we're a department of 30 people, and each audit's about 3 people, 2 people sometimes. So you work with them, and then each month you might be with different people. And I've also worked in personal tax. I've had a secondment there, and I'm looking to do one in corporate tax. One of the misconceptions with accountancy is that, like Lauren said, you're stuck in an office, but working in audit, I've been out on site and in the office. So, I mean, obviously everything changed last March with the COVID pandemic, but up to then I'd been out on site probably about half the time, and then on the office the rest of the time. Obviously it's changed since then, a lot more done remotely, but it's definitely not sitting in an office all day. And one thing I can definitely say is that every day is different. Next slide, please. So some suggestions as to what was useful for me when I was in your position. So start applying early to avoid the pressure of finals. So for me, when I got into my 3rd year, I started looking, and I'd actually secured my graduate position by the December. Obviously, it's not going to be able to happen for everyone, but it took the pressure off. I just had to make sure that I got my 2-1, which was required, and then I didn't have to worry about interviews or the questionnaires that they make you do and all that. I think also you need to think about the size of firm you want to be a part of and the experiences you want. If you want to be doing the large FTSE 100 companies, obviously, a little accountancy firm is not for you. You might want to look at the Big Four, but there might be different experiences you want to get. In the interview process, don't be afraid to ask questions. The job needs to fit both you and the employer. You don't want to start in a job and then be really unhappy, and 2 weeks down the line think, actually, it's not for me, and leave. The employer won't be that happy, and well, you've wasted your time. And communication is key. Math skills are important, yes, but a lot of audit is asking the client, getting that relationship and those skills of communicating with your team, communicating with the client to make sure that you get the information that you need for your job. Next slide, please. Is it working?
Yeah, can you see that, current opportunities?
No, I'm just seeing suggestions.
What are you seeing, Naeem? Can you see current opportunities?
I can see current opportunities.
Perfect. If you can visualize, that'd be fab, Ellen.
So some of the current opportunities that we have at Francis Clark. So for the graduates, there's two different routes. So I did the first route, which was audit and accounts route, and then I've done an ICAW apprenticeship, 3 years of study, and then now I'm ACA qualified. Well, I've got the paperwork to go, but more or less. Or you can go down the tax route. So there's 2 different tax routes. So you can do ATT and CTA or ACA CTA. I don't know much about ATT CTA, but I've had people in my cohort do ACA CTA, and so they've been with us, and then we qualify, and then they've carried on, and they've got the last few exams to go, I believe. Next slide, please. I'm going to assume everyone else can see it, and it's just my computer again.
Yeah, so about your applications, Ellen. We're testing your knowledge here.
So the application process is open now. So the first step is to tell the firm about you. So that's to see if you can go forward to the next step, which is the ability test. So that's showing your ability. And then the third step is the phone interview. And the last step is the assessment centre. So all throughout them, it's just to be yourself, because as I said earlier, you want it to be the right fit for you and the right fit for the employer. So that's me done. And I will pass you on to Nasir Hussain.
Hi everyone, my name is Nasir Hussain. I'm a principal economist at the Environment Agency. Next slide, please. So I'm currently working within the government department sector. So people might think, like, what do government economists do? And it's quite a broad subject. People do there's lots of different departments, and it's really interesting work. I have done different departments, but I'll explain on the next slide. Yep, so that's the agenda what I'm going to go through. So yep, so my name's Nasir Hussain. I started university as a mature student. So I did a BSc International Economics and Finance in Cardiff Met. I'm currently just finishing off MSc International Banking and Finance at Cardiff University. I have worked in ONS, Environment Agency as well, which I'm currently just working on now. But I've done it quite an unorthodox way, I would say. So I'll explain on the next slide. So some of the basic concepts, what do you do as working as an economist? So basically the concepts you learn in economics, you try to apply them to real life problems. So you'll have that, but then different departments have do different things. So for different tasks, for example. So if you're working in the ONS, Office of National Statistics, you'll do a lot of data analysis, and you might do a lot of econometrics. Again, DIT stands for Department for International Trade. It's a very interesting department. You'll be doing a lot of data analysis. You'll be working on the trade figures. Maybe so in other departments, so Department of Communities, for example, lots of other departments, you're going to do appraisals and evaluations. So this is the government has a set framework. So they use the green book. There's a green book, magenta book. I don't know. That framework you use to do appraisals and evaluations. So it might be like your evaluating government policy. How is it, and what's the cost and what's the benefit? So it's quite an interesting subject, but also it's not just economics. So for example, if you like trains, for example, so you can use your economic knowledge and work in your department for transport, for example. Yep. If you like, if you enjoy, like, you're interested in working for the environment and making a big impact, you can work in the Environment Agency. There's the Treasury. I have a couple of colleagues that work in the Treasury. And that's really always in the news. So they have the government economist is such a big. You different departments. You can do pretty much anything what you want to do. Next slide, please. So some of the economics you probably might do, you got market failure and regulation. So you might do public goods. You might do merit goods. I won't read them all there anyway. Externalities, common goods, asymmetric information, and like moral hazards. These are some of the concepts that to work in economics within the government you have to know, and you apply these concepts. So on the next slide, I'll go there. So I'll talk a bit about ONS. So I did say I went in the unorthodox way. So a lot of people will just go on the website and apply direct. I don't do that. So I work as a contractor. So I worked via an agency. I had a 6 months contract, and that was beneficial for me because I like learning. And if you work direct for one, like if I work direct for ONS, for example, I would be stuck in one department for maybe 1 year, 2 years. And for me, that's not good enough. I want to learn a lot. So what I do a 6 months contract. I build up my relationships. As soon as I know there's a space in a different department, I'll go and move. And after every 6 months, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years within ONS. So a bit about history about ONS. The ONS is the UK's largest independent producer of official statistics, and it's recognized as a National Statistics Institute. Main responsibilities are collecting, analysing, disseminating statistics about UK economies, society and population. One of the big headline statistics it's always in the news is UK GDP, inflation, employment, and other stuff. For example, cost what you pay in the shop, inflation, is it rising, is it going up, why is it rising? So it's really, really interesting. Naomi, you are right. Don't always think outside the box. If you're going to go apply direct, it's a big, long process. If you can find somebody who's going through an agency, you can do it. And I will give you a link. And also as well, it's not just economists. So an economist might be just doing the commentating. For example, I started working as trade asymmetries, doing research. So trade asymmetry is basically the difference between our trade figures and a different country's trade figures. Then I went on to a different department, which was writing the trade bulletin, and writing the trade bulletin, I would have to go every month. It would be done. I would get a lot of questions from journalists. During that time, it was coming up close to Brexit, so I decided to move into another international analysis department, which was a department that was kind of funded by the Department of International Trade. And we did a lot of trade and Brexit stuff, really interesting work. And even now, it's really interesting. So it is really, don't just think, oh, there's one way in. There's lots of different ways in, and you have to use everything to the best of your ability. Next slide, please. So environment economics. So I don't know whether you've done anything, but in environmental agency, that's what you're going to be doing. So many aspects of the environment provide benefits to us, so they're not included in the normal your market decisions. So this means they are overlooked and undervalued by typical economics and business decisions. So we call this like market failure. A key part of the environment economics is working how to bring these impacts into decision making and internalizing the problem or the externality. And again, there's different ways how to do it. So we used to do a cost benefit analysis. There's lots of different ways how to do it, but it's not just that way. We also we work on flood defenses. I'm currently working on flood defenses. A local authority puts a business case together on a flood defense, and our job is basically look at the business case, make sure it's right, make sure it's effective. So for example, if you have a village and you look at, it might not sound right, but is it worth saving that village from flooding? It has to be, the benefit has to be higher than the cost. So if it's one house, and if it's one house worth 200,000, and you're going to spend maybe $1 million on it, it's not you're not investing the government money in the right for it. You can use it to bet other stuff. So sometimes it's better just to we basically look how to best spend the government money, and that's in every government department. So there's processes for that, and we have to follow the processes. Next slide, please. So a bit by the Environment Agency. It's established in 1996 to protect and improve the environment. It's responsible for managing the risk and risk of flooding for main rivers, reservoirs, estuaries, and sea. And we use a lot of the Green Book, which we use appraisals and evaluations. We also do, so sometimes, which we're currently, one of my projects I'm doing now is project managing. So if there's some research that needs to be done, so we outsource the research to another economics consultancy. So you're working with the consultancy. So that has to be, there's a big process for it, and you have to follow the processes that the government guidelines you have to do. And next slide, please. So how would you start up as an industry? So within the government, you can apply for the Government Economic Service Fast Stream. The Fast Stream, you have to do there's lots of, you got to do the online test, normal what you have to do, but you have to go to a Fast Stream Assessment Centre, an FSAC. This is mainly, you're going to be going to London. You go to London, and there's sort of a lot of tasks you have to do. Presentation, how you do group work, and it's basically you spend an afternoon there, and if you pass that, you get onto the Fast Stream. Now, if you get onto the Fast Stream, they normally say is basically in a space of 2 to 5 years, you can work up to a higher level. So, for example, you'll be starting at on a HEO level, and you'll work up to a grade 7 level. So that's one way how to go about it. But lately, they've changed it now. So you do assistant economist schemes. So you can do the assistant economist schemes, and then again, you have to do an economic assessment center. It's basically majority of the economic assessment center is government. Is the slide which I previously told you about, market failure slides. As long as you know about that, you can you pass that and you become an assistant economist. So you'll be, if you do both of them routes, you're a badged economist. So I said to you, I did it an orthodox way. I went to an agency. So I'll put the link up for the agency as well. So I did it through an agency. I didn't have to do any of the assessment centers. I got in and I worked my way through. I built my relationships. As soon as my contract was 6 months, everyone, oh, can you do work for us? Can you work for us? And that's how I've done. As long as you work hard, yeah, you build your relationships, nobody's gonna kind of, they'll keep you on as long as you want, basically. As long as they have opportunities, you can do it. So after I worked there at ONOS for 3 years, and the same way I got approached to work in the Environment Agency, and it's not, it's a lot of people I know who actually do that, because in the government, when they have a project, they don't want a full-time employee. They have to. A project might be maybe a year, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 years. So they only want somebody for the duration of the project, and that's normally they do that via contracting agencies. Now, there's the advantages and the disadvantages. Advantage of a contractor working, salary is a lot higher, but disadvantages is you don't get any benefits. So you don't get holiday pay, you don't get sick pay. So there is advantages and there's disadvantages, but don't just be, keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. These are some of the jobs that currently, if you go on civil service jobs, there's a role there for the HM Treasury, assistant economist, balance sheet analysis. DCM stands for Department Culture and Media. So these are live jobs, and again, the ONS are doing lots of projects. So if you want to work as a contractor, you can come in as a contractor. But it's not just economics. So they have an economics contractor and a research contractor. We have researchers, social sciences. So you can do a methods data research, which that's the actual role it's called, and maybe you'll be looking into research into statistics. Some of the tools you need for the job: Excel. I would really advise you make sure you learn Excel. If you can be really good at Excel, yeah, that will help you in pretty much any industry. Most industries use Excel. If you can code, you can use Python or you can use R. Again, it'll be very advantageous for you. So that is kind of what I think. Also, as well, I mean, there's one question I wanted to ask was basically about kind of answer is, as I went as a mature student, so I was limited to, I only at that time I could only apply within Wales. I didn't want to, I had family, I couldn't really move anywhere else. So don't be afraid. You know, I'm older, I've got more experience, I've got more tools, I've got more soft skills than maybe somebody who's just as a 20-year-old. I've learned a lot more, and every tool you have in your box, make it to your advantage, basically. And another thing is, like, for example, it was lockdown, so the universities were online this year, and I knew that because we was working from home. So I've just completed a MSc in international economics because I knew, you know, you can do it at home. I can do it while I'm doing my job. How is the day at work? It depends on the role. So I'll give you an example. Most of my role within ONS is like, so if I was doing the trade bulletin, for example, I would look at the news, what's going on with the news, within the UK, where we export a lot of cars, or we import a lot of cars and we export a lot of cars. So we will look at what's going on with the industries, what's going on. As long as you're up to date with what's going on with the news, and that's one of the main things. And secondly is you do a lot of analysis within Excel. And there's another thing. So even this is another tool. After you have finished this, there's other useful online tools which you can learn as well after university. So there's a thing which I have done, and I've done a lot of courses on it. It's called EDX Learning online, and a lot of free courses. So after you can do this while you actually when you're working and you want to learn new things. You know, I do a lot of them, and there's a lot of economics courses on there. So I use that a lot. So that's pretty much all I had. I'll pass it on to Joshua now.
Hello, thank you very much. I assume everyone can hear me okay? Apologies in advance. It's no fancy slides as what you've been seeing. It's going to be pretty much just one slide with me talking. So hopefully I don't bore you all too much. So about me, so I'm an audit senior at a company called Albert Goodman. My role is essentially overseeing a team on audit. In terms of how I got there, so I went through college and then I studied at the University of Plymouth, and that was studying accounting and finance. Reason I did accounting and finance is the only real thing I enjoyed at college, actually. So I just kind of thought it was the next step, didn't really know what to do. So went down that route. After graduating in 2015, I then worked for a smaller practice in Plymouth. So that was a one office, probably about 45 people or so in the office. And then I did in my first year, when I was employed there, I did AAT level 4. After I've done my AAT level 4, I then started my ACA qualification, and then I finished my exams in summer 2018. I joined Albert Goodman just before qualifying. So I joined Albert Goodman in May 2018, and then did the fund finals in summer 2018. And I'm then based in the Taunton office with Albert Goodman. Predominantly my experience is now audit. I would probably say 95% of my time is spent on audit. But during the first few years at the smaller firm that I worked at, I was predominantly business services. So that was taking the sort of financials of a company, putting them into a statutory format ready for submission to Companies House. There was also a lot more personal tax sides, and that was both preparing personal tax returns, but also looking at tax planning. So how can we sort of get the money out of a company more efficiently for its owners, any future sort of inheritance tax planning, that sort of stuff. And there was also a bit more corporation tax, sort of statutory again, and also corporation tax planning. In terms of my day-to-day job now in audit, so I sort of go through the start into the end process of an audit. That'll begin with the planning, so sort of a pre-year end call with a client, how's things gone in the year, sort of get draft financials. We then look at sort of any risks with the company, and then sort of prepare budgets, that sort of thing, calculate materiality. From that, we'll then present that to our team. So there sort of be a team, generally speaking, between 2 and 5 people, really, depending on the size of the client. We sort of present that and then sort of have discussions before we go about doing our on-site work. Last year was obviously a bit different. That was all predominantly remotely, as you'd expect. But generally speaking, our field work, we tend to go out on site to client. It's always quite nice. And then what we do, we sort of select samples, take their data, and then test it to really make sure it's just accurate. There is the non-financial side element of it. So that looks at discussions with the client. So we just sort of hold the conversation with them. Is there sort of any risk with them that they know about, any legal issues, health and safety issues? Just generally have sort of a talk with the client, just see if there's anything we need to sort of report on, really. So when the field work's done, we then move on to a sort of finalisation part. So this involves sort of tidying up the file, getting the financial statements in order, really, making sure they're presentable. We then hold sort of a closing meeting with a client, and we just sort of present what we found in our audit, whether there's adjustments we've made that are large and we've gone ahead and made them, sort of just letting them know about that. Any unadjusted errors. So these are sort of errors we found that aren't big. So if they don't want to make them, then there's no requirement to make them, that they're not big enough to sort of what we call affect the user sort of opinion of the financial statement. So they're not material. Once that's done, then there's sort of just like a general meeting, and then we just present the financial statements to them. As an audit senior, sort of my role then involves managing a team. Like I said, there'd be probably I oversee sort of 2 or 3 people, and then there'd be a manager above me, and then a partner above them. So yeah, I tend to oversee. So it's kind of my responsibility, really, to make sure the work gets done. In terms of the sort of outfield work, a lot of our clients are fairly local, but we do have some sort of that involve a stay away. So you tend to go away from home from time to time, which, you know, 3 meals in the evening, going out to restaurants is always quite a nice little treat. Good experiences where you get to go to places you wouldn't necessarily go to. The vast majority of our clients are sort of owner managed businesses. So they're the shareholder as well as the directors of the business. I tend to work, particularly this time of year, pretty much all of my work involves the audit of academies. And then so the benefit is, I always find with owner managed business is quite nice for me. I quite like having sort of a close relationship with the directors, and you sort of get a bit more involved and you understand the company a bit more, really, from the top to bottom. The company I work for, Albert Goodman, so we're based in the southwest, and we have offices in Bristol, Chard, Weston-super-Mare, Yeovil, Taunton, and Weymouth. We currently have around 300 employees. For me, it's quite a good size. As I sort of said earlier, I worked for a sort of one office, 45 person company, and that was great. I do quite like the size I'm at now, really. It's kind of the size between, you sort of still have quite a good cultural feel of the place. You kind of know a lot more people. You also then have the size where you've got a good range of sort of expertise. So it's good in terms of if there's a particular area you want to learn at, then there's that expertise available to you if you need it. It's also quite good for a client point of view. Sorry. So we do offer a vast range of services. So as I said, I'm in audit. We do business services. We do tax. We have quite a large agricultural team, and we do also have a corporate finance team, which, you know, so there is quite a lot in terms of the business side. There's also a personal side of it, which include investment management, financial planning, and various personal tax services. Our trainees at Albert Goodman, So I trained elsewhere, but when I joined Albert Goodman, I did my finals. Generally speaking, our trainees study in Bristol, so they go and study with a company called First Intuition. Tend to sit sort of 2 exams every 6 months, and then they'll go away and study. And again, it's, as I said earlier, it's quite a nice break really. Kind of leave the work behind for a couple of weeks at a time, and they then sit the sort of 3 exams, the 3 finals, which are usually sat in July or November. If, for example, for whatever reason you'd rather do sort of 1 exam at a time, that'd be fine. AG are flexible. We've got a couple of students that would either just rather do one exam at a time just for personal reasons. That's fine, that they're supportive of you either way. And then once you've done your sort of ACA exams, if you did want to study and do, I don't know, CTA, for example, if you did want to study more, they will support you in that. Whether that be straight after your exams, or if in a few years later you decide, I want to actually do, I don't know, something particular to sort of personal investments or a corporate finance exam. Again, they're supportive of that, but there's no need, there's no expectation really to carry on studying. So it's just if you sort of wanted to study more, add another string to your bow, they are supportive of that. They do currently have a few vacancies as well, so that they're looking for trainees, particularly sort of summer 2022 intake. They do have various roles: audit, business services, tax. We do have a medical team as well, which is the team that's based in Bristol. And as sort of the name suggests, they specifically look at medical clients, doctor surgeries, that type of thing. My top tips really, I would always say just always ask for help, whether that is, you know, sort of day one you're unsure on what to do, where to go, who to speak to, if it's particular audit work or whatever work it is you're doing. If there's anything you're unsure of, I would just ask the question. It's always, you'll come across a lot better if you're confident enough to ask the question. No one expects you know, sort of you to join and know everything. I know when I first started work, I kind of felt like I should know a lot, having a degree, etc. But going into experience, it is different. You know, you have that base knowledge, you have a good level of base knowledge, but it's little things that you'll forget or you're unsure of. I would just ask the question. You'll save a lot of time in the long run. But also going for jobs, or when you're at a job and if there's something new you want to try, ask the question. In my experience, sort of employees are very fond of people who do ask the question. It does show that sort of good desire, sort of good eagerness to push forward really. I know particularly in the last few years we've had quite a lot of partners been made at Albert Goodman, and they are sort of they've come through the ranks. They've started as a trainee and they've gone forward and gone all the way. So if there is something that does interest you in becoming a partner, or sort of having opportunities at, you know, a lot of different areas, then it is a good place to work. Like I said, I've worked at a smaller firm and then joined Albert Goodman, and it is sort of, for me anyway, it works really well. It's a good balance between having that sort of small feeling, if you like, of having a good culture, having a good team, that sort of good relationships, but also having that opportunity, that potential to try different things really. I know in our recent trainees, they are sort of giving them secondments in different areas just to give them the experience anyway. So you tend to do sort of in a few months, for example, doing audit of corporate clients, then you might do some charity work, then you might do academies, you could then do some tax work, for example, and then business services, just to give you a sort of a good foundation really to see what you like. You might find you excel more in one area and you enjoy that area more. But yeah, I would just always recommend ask the question, sort of push yourself forward, and you'll find doors do open really. So yeah, that's all for me. It's no fancy slide, so thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Josh. And actually, as you were talking about tax, I don't know whether you can see that, November's edition of Tax Advisor came through the door. So, you know, the postman delivered it. No, thank you very much to all our speakers. So we will have some opportunity now for some questions. But before we do move on to questions, so my colleague Natalie has been collating all your questions from the chat. So if there's anything any of the speakers have said today or anything you want to ask, you know, now's your opportunity to post it in the chat and we'll pose them to our panel. Just before we do move on to questions, I just want to promote our next Careers Insight event. And that's because it's fairly relevant to today and it might be something of interest to you. So next week we're running careers in business, consultancy, HR and law. So if if this is something of interest to you, then please sign up to that on MetHub, and that's next Thursday. The other things I will do is they're included in these slides, some other events, but I'll also promote them in the chat for you. But just in the interest of giving you, all the information today, there is a event running to tell you about ACCA and the Accelerate programme, and that's on the 23rd of November. So I'll drop that in the chat. And then CIMA are also running a few events in the next couple of weeks regarding their qualifications and their opportunities. So lots of different things for you to get involved in. So I'm going to pass back to my colleague Natalie, who is going to host the chat for us.
Hi everyone, just wanted to say a quick thank you again to echo what Keris has said for everyone's presentations. So I've got a couple of questions that I've been sent by different students as you've all been speaking. So I'm just going to work through them. Some of them are directly addressed to someone specific, but if anyone has anything to add, please, feel free to get involved. So the first one I've got is for Lauren, and someone has asked and said they're very interested in ethical businesses and pensions, basically anything related to good causes and sustainability, but also forensic accounting. And they've asked, how did you get involved as a CFE, and did this help moving into accounting for international aid?
Okay, thank you. I think I did put some comments in the chat, so I'll just say what I said. The CFE actually came later on because I was working in the international development sector. You're obviously in quite high corruption or countries that are quite high on the corruption index. So unfortunately, as with the nature of this work, fraud was there and we were detecting it, and the qualification just helped to harness those skills so that we were better at detecting them. And it's a really good qualification, but it is one that you need to have some financial background before you can start it. I would say personally for me it really helped in terms of business development and kind of getting new growth opportunities for the department and now for my own firm, because it's just a different side to audit that you can add to. In terms of the kind of the pensions and the sustainability field sectors that they're interested in, now lots of the bigger accountancy firms know that these are quite hot topics, so they will have departments that specialise in those. So if you're looking for graduate opportunities, you will often be able to find departments which specialise in those kind of areas, and so you can target your application to that. And it's always good to show your desire or your need, your interest in those sectors and what you do in your wider community to support that as part of your application, because it will always be well regarded. I think that's all for me.
That's great, thanks Lauren. Yeah, it's definitely a good shout to always get some more experience on things that you're interested in to complement your degree, I think. So I think it's a great piece of advice to give there. So the next question, I've got two for Ryan. So the first one is, it's often said that age matters in the finance industry. If you want to break into finance, particularly investment banking, there's generally sort of a viewpoint that you should start early. What's your opinion about it? I know you had a bit of a sort of non-linear path towards what you do now.
Yeah, I think it's not to say it can't happen. I think the key thing I would say is, especially older people, is what you can prioritize. It's a energy and time intensive role. Working at Santander is not like your Goldman Sachs. I don't know if anyone's seen the presentations of them working 110 hours a week for 12 months straight. It's not too bad here, but it is still. There are definitely weeks where I'm working weekends both days, and largely my evenings are taken up with work. And if I get a free evening, it's too late to plan anything. So you have to want to work in it. And it's not to say that if you're older you can't work in it, but largely life might get in the way. That's all I'd say. Is hopefully not too harsh to anybody. But.
No, that's great. And there's just sort of a follow-up question to do with that. And it's just, what kind of advice would you perhaps give to any mature students or applicants that want to pursue a career in finance? Specifically if they've got years of experience from like a non-financial industry, any tips you might have, because obviously you did a similar thing yourself.
Yeah, I think it's certainly doable. We've had some interns this year who, one of them particularly he had a few things. I think historically he was a doctor, some form of medicine, and then health conditions meant he couldn't do that. So then went into research in some form of engineering, and now he's moving over into finance. So did an internship in finance. I would say that the tips are, there are doors open for you, whether it's perhaps not graduate schemes, but certainly internships over summer, or doors that you can come into, like junior level roles that you would be able to apply for. I would say that the only thing you can do on top is to highlight what skills you've got from your previous work experience and bring that into whatever you're applying for. The other way, and I'll stress as well, is if you know anybody, and now you know me, so hit me up on LinkedIn, talk to me, talk to people, develop a network, and that's a very good way of trying to get places. I'm not senior enough to give you an internship, and senior people can't give you internships because it's about how good you are, not who you know. But it's always good to know people, right? It's always good to, because then I can tell you Santander's got an internship coming up. Here's the link, and so just develop that network. Make sure people know that you want to move into that job, and then something happens because of like that liquidity of that knowledge, right?
Yeah, that's very true, Ryan. We're always trying to kind of stress the importance of networking and how it can be really useful in finding connections for future career opportunities, especially if you're looking for doing something a bit different to what you currently do. So yes, that's a very good tip there.
Could I add something to that, please, Natalie, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so in terms of we used to oversee the recruitment at Moore Stephens and the Department of BDO, and when you have applications that have a different background, they're always ones that catch your eye. So they're always ones where it would often lead to a question as, I'll be interested just to get them in to find out how this has happened or how this whole career path has brought them to this decision now. And so it's never a detriment to you as long as you can show that your skills can be transferable. It's actually ones that with the applications that always kind of trigger intrigue as opposed to being put to one side.
Naz, did you have something you wanted to add as well?
Yeah, basically, I've got a couple of friends of mine that had gone into investment banking, but there's one way you don't have to necessarily go for the big banks. So you can go for the small wealth management companies, and they start off with the wealth management companies, and they're probably a lot easier to get in. And then once they've got the experience, then they move into the big banks. So, keep an open mind.
Yeah, that's a good point of keep your options open and think outside the box about who you're looking to approach as well, I suppose. The next question I've got is for Ellen, and one of our students has asked, what are the benefits in your minds of working for a smaller accountancy firm as opposed to working for one of the big four?
For me, I feel like I've had slightly more experience than I probably would have got, and slightly faster. People have come in from the big four to the firm, and you've heard, I mean, it's probably not the case across everywhere. Everyone has a different experience, but that they've been on an audit for 6 months and they've been, well, as they put it, stuck in a cupboard. I'm sure that doesn't happen, but for me, I'm quite often on a different job every month, and certainly to start with, I got more experience and I learned different things at possibly quicker than I would have done. So for me, that's one of the benefits.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Ellen. I think it's definitely worth considering what sort of challenges you're looking for. And like you say, you might get a bit more variety with the things that you're working on in a smaller organisation. I suppose it's just down to personal preference, isn't it? So the next question I've got, and I think this one is just more suited perhaps towards Lauren again. what would you advise for people who'd like to become self-employed? So obviously we've got a lot of students looking to do similar roles to yourself, but those that would perhaps want to do what you've done and start your own business as well, if you've got any tips.
Yeah, so very brave to start to become self-employed straight out of university. Brilliant. I don't think I would have had the confidence to do that, and actually I think I would never have done it if we hadn't gone through a merger and change was kind of almost forced upon me. The one thing I would do is make sure you read as much as you can and get support. The ICAEW has so many resources, so does the government website, in terms of requirements that you need to follow, and get advice. There are people you can find. Try and find a mentor or someone who has done that, who can support you. It's not impossible, it's brilliant, it's exciting. You're your own person, you have all the flexibility, all of the, it's your baby. You're not beholden to anybody else, but just try and get as much support and advice as you can. Obviously, some of that will cost money, but a lot of different advisors, so tax advisors, financial advisors, will often give you some time for free. And again, like LinkedIn, you can find those contacts. So try and align yourself with as many mentors or support as you can, just so that all of your bases are covered. So your kind of IT, accountancy, tax, any infrastructure things, you've got some support with, because it can be a bit lonely, but very exciting and thrilling at the same time.
Thanks, Lauren. And I think just to reiterate, Hannah, at the beginning of the session, the entrepreneurship team are there to support you for a lot of, sort of getting into businesses and starting your own companies. So please use them. They're a great resource. They know what they're talking about and they'll help you every step of the way. So please look them up and remember them. Keris, how are we doing for time? Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, it depends on our speakers. Appreciate you giving up so much of your time on a Friday. If you do need to leave, please do. But if you do want to stay, go for it. If there's a couple of questions, it's up to these guys. We won't be. But if anyone does need to leave, just to say a massive thank you. It's been such a varied set of insights we've had today, so I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, no, carry on. But if anyone does need to leave, then please feel free. Do appreciate. Please don't miss any lectures or anything for this. So we did say 90 minutes. So carry on, Nat.
Yes, so I've got just a couple more. So one is a student who has English as their second language, and they've asked what level of professional language is required in order to apply for positions in this kind of sector and secure it. I don't know. I don't think that's to anyone in particular, but if anyone has any insight on that, that would be appreciated.
I'm happy to give 2 pence. Working at Santander, which is a Spanish bank, it's, I would say maybe 30% of the people on the floor are English. Everyone else is from another country, largely Spain, Italy, Portugal, a lot of Latin America, but also other places. I think as long as you can interact with people, largely you should be fine. Potentially some other technical roles here might be more difficult, but certainly what I do, it wouldn't be an issue, and probably a benefit, because you can speak different languages and interact with other clients in different geographies. And there's a guy who's just joined who can speak 5 languages, so he's like on all the client calls because he can interact with them from like day one.
Thanks, Ryan. Is there anyone else that has any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think languages, you have to use it to your benefit. So you, again, like Ryan said, you're bilingual. And as well as that, you have to be, I think if you're confident, as long as you can do each task really well, like your work, yeah, that's the main thing. And you can communicate all your out. For example, if you're doing some kind of analysis on Excel, and you can explain to something what you've done, and what's the result of it, and what's the conclusion of it, that's the main thing. As long as you can do that, and you don't have to have a PhD in English to do that. So just be confident.
Yeah, I would say having, like, if you know more than one language as well, it opens up doors. It doesn't close doors. Certainly, we don't have many clients abroad, but we had to go to France, and in our team, one person could speak French, so they got to go to France. So it does open doors. I would say. I wouldn't ever say it would close doors or hinder you at all.
Thank you, everyone. So the next question I've got is, if we're on a master's program and don't have a lot of experience in finance, what's the best way to gain experience on banking and finance? Again, it's not to anyone specific, so you know, I welcome any opinions.
Just a quick one. When I did my economics degree, I kept writing up to different companies, and I wrote to ONS, and I started. They've offered me a 1 day a week kind of work experience. I used to do that on a Wednesday. It was part of the year 2 work experience module. So even if it's something, if it's a day a week, and if it's unpaid, as long as you're in there and you've got it there, you've got it on your CV, you've got it on your LinkedIn profile, it makes a big difference.
Thanks, Naz. Has anyone else got anything to add?
I would just say, sorry, try and build the network as you can. So, you know, LinkedIn, there is a lot of stuff available on LinkedIn. There is a lot of sort of free services as well that, you know, can point you in the right directions as well. So I would just, you know, do your research. There will be stuff there to help you. It's just all about going to the right place, really.
I was just going to say as well that ICAW, we run a lot of virtual skills sessions to help students enhance their employability, and it's open to everyone. It doesn't matter what discipline you're from. And in particular, we have skills sessions that kind of show how you use your transferable skills. So skills that you probably have already, you just don't realise it, and how you can highlight them to employers. So I can share the link to the skill sessions in this chat.
Oh, that would be great. Thanks, Zoe.
Just one thing to add from me as well, just to stress that I mentioned it earlier. Santander's graduate scheme for investment banking is degree agnostic. They have years where the previous intake has been swayed one way, so they try and cage it the other way. But they are agnostic this year. So whether you've done history or languages or finance, so you need to just find these financial companies which are agnostic. And I think largely some of the bigger companies will be, because they're looking for people that have the ability to learn, have the ability to adapt quickly, and work that way. So I think you should be okay.
Thanks, Ryan. I've actually got a question for you, Brian, that we've had, and it's what sort of skills should we develop to increase our chances into breaking into the asset management industry? So I think you've touched a little bit on that, but I suppose would it be things like, you say, just transferable skills, softer skills, things like that, that perhaps aren't degree specific?
Yeah, so we work with asset managers, funds, but I'm not in it. I would say, from what I can see, a good way in it is, I see lots of auditors or accountants or other people go into asset management from like an internal financial planning perspective. Also see lots of people come from finance backgrounds go into asset management because they've got the investment knowledge and financial analysis knowledge. I think largely is probably quite a technical role. There may be non-technical roles, but if you can get any form of accounting, finance, business skill set, you can probably work your way towards an asset management role.
Thanks, Ryan. The next question I've got is for Josh, and it says, after becoming qualified, are you looking to stay in audit, or would you consider moving into something different, so like tax, corporate finance, or forensic accounting, for example?
For me personally, I quite enjoy audit. It's not to everyone's cup of tea, but I quite enjoy the clients we've got. To be fair, are also, you know, nice to work with. But I quite enjoy the going out to clients. You know, it's not the same office every day. I enjoy the audit work. I'd never say never, because I do quite like the sort of the corporate sort of planning, that sort of stuff, acquisitions, mergers. I find that stuff can be quite interesting, but I enjoy audit. So for the time being, I'm not looking to move into a different department. So yeah, but you never know, 2 years down the line. But yeah, for now, I enjoy audit. I enjoy what I do. Yeah, I'm not looking to move anywhere.
That's great. Thank you, Josh. And just lastly, I've got a question that is more general. So if anyone wants to take that, it's how would undergraduates that are around 18 years old go about gaining experience?
I would say internships quite good. That you'll often see that there's sort of like summer internships or like weekly work experience, and it tends to be now experience does go a long way. It will, if someone's got 1 week of work experience on a CV applying for like the first graduate job, it is just something that stands out a little bit more. I didn't do one, but I know people that did, and they did have a good time. But it also, if you do your week experience at an accountancy firm, for example, it might just open up a door of, we've also got a graduate program coming up. You know, is it something you're interested in? Or like I said, my top tip, ask the question when you're there. If you're there and you enjoy what you do, ask the question, is there a chance I could do like an internship for the whole summer? Can I come back next summer, or can I come back in September and do some more work? And, you know, if there's nothing there, that they'll certainly keep your name on record in case they do ever have something for you.
Thanks, Josh. Has anyone else got any tips?
A lot of the government civil service jobs, they have lots of internships. They have like a year, 6 months placements, a year placements you can do while you're doing at university. Take a year out. That's always a good option.
Thanks, Naz.
Shall I add the final tip to that, Nat?
Yeah, please do.
Engage with your career service. It's got to be said. So I've posted in the chat, and I've kind of been plugging us the whole way through. But you know, each university has a career service that's dedicated to support you. So all of our employers today have talked about job applications and quite difficult and arduous processes. You know, they're definitely something that we can help with and support you with. You know, we're always looking out for, especially, you know, Naeem, your school employability officer, is always looking out for job opportunities and things that will really help further that and give you that work experience. So please, if you haven't already, you know, engage with us, attend our careers webinars, book one-to-one appointments, because they really are, you know, a big asset and a big help to your career. Is that all our questions?
It is, and I just want to add one last comment to do with the internships thing.
Yep.
It's around now that a lot of the bigger corporations will be starting to post their summer internships. I think Ryan's just posted a link to the Santander ones that are going to be happening in the summer. So if you're interested in getting experience and you're a first year and you're really keen to get experience, start looking around now, because that's when a lot of firms will be advertising their summer internships and their Easter internships. So it is worth having a look. And again, the career service can support you in trying to find some of those as well. That's it.
Perfect. Right, thank you so much for overrunning and staying with us. Those of you, we appreciate you are really busy, and it is a Friday afternoon for everybody. So thank you very much for staying with us. We will send you the recording of today, and we'll send you the presentation through by email. But please do, you know, say thank you to our speakers, really say thank you on LinkedIn as well, post, and please do engage with us. And hopefully we'll see a few of you at our Careers Insights event next week on Careers in Business. So thank you very much to our speakers, much appreciated, and have a lovely weekend, everybody.